Right.
Jake. There. Oh, Steve's here. Yay. Okay. Thank you, Jake.
Okay. Thank you all. So officially, this is a subcommittee meeting for budgetary matters. I believe this is the one, right? We've got a lot of cross meetings. But I think this is
This
the one.
one's community support.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we're around community support, and really we wanted to convene this committee to just sort of brainstorm ideas around how we would use the fiscal funds that we have available between now and December, after which those funds will be absorbed into general budget of the city and will not be reinstated at this time. So so these are one-time funds that we can use to help support worthy causes or partnerships or organizations. And I know that we did spend, or we approved to spend at our regular board meeting, $1,000 already. So that takes us down to around 7. Is that correct, Cody?
Yes, but I also have learned some things in the last week.
Great. As you're always learning things, and we always sometimes
you may not
benefit
like
from
what I
those
learned.
things. Yeah, I know. I'm like, sometimes we benefit and sometimes,
Yeah.
we don't, but no, it's fine. So please.
In this case, it just makes things more challenging. I think you all know we got some new city attorneys over the last couple of years, so they're looking, and then there's been a lot of new case law through COVID and everything, so things look different. Because you're an advisory board, anything you want to do with your money has to be approved by city council. So Mayor Pro Tem did ask on Monday night if it was okay to support that our a la carte activity on September 8th. And the council agreed, especially because they know and trust Kate and knew that she was helping with that and to facilitate the artist on all of that. So I think that's one thing we want to keep in our minds. Is this energy we want to expend? Will council support it? How can we support things happening in the city that might be easier as opposed to going out on our own? Oh, and here's Miguel. So just being mindful there's an extra hurdle, if you want to call it that, or extra step, not hurdle. Hey, Miguel.
How many days do we have left to get it before the council? By the way, this is Steve. Hi.
Hey, Steve. Miguel, I'm just going to tell you what I just heard, what I just shared with the group, and that is that I learned from the city attorney's office this last week that to use any of our funding, it has to be approved by city council because this board is advisory to city council. So just as a have in mind as we go through this. City council meets almost every week. They meet, they have at least 2 council meetings and usually 2 study sessions unless there's a holiday. So they're meeting every week. It's just a matter of making the recommendation that Mayor Pro Tem then makes a recommendation to the council. So I would say making the decision and recommendations during your board meeting so that the Mayor Pro Tem can get council buy-in or not at the next meeting, the next council meeting. So only 4 days later, usually 5 days later, is probably the most efficient way to go about it.
Good. So there's plenty of meetings to get on the agenda.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be on the agenda. It's not a formalized agenda item. He asked during their pre-meeting sessions. So your next meeting, I think, is September, I'm going to say September 13th or something like that. Off screens. The following meeting for council, they have a pre-meeting session every week. And so the 11th, he would ask during pre-meeting anything, or I'm sorry, your meeting's on the 13th, he would ask on the 18th. So that also means thinking far enough ahead that it'd be after the 18th in order to properly give heads up and work on a project. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. So I also talked to other folks about options or opportunities. Arts Week is coming up, and the Artifacts program are both coming up, those might, I think they both have enough time to think ahead. And talk about if you want to participate in those things. I was told that the essentials for doing something like providing essentials or meals for people experiencing homelessness, again, that's another thing that would have to be accepted by the council. And we'd want to, of course, talk to Kate Scarbeck about what that might look like. She's at our next meeting. So there's an opportunity there. I think all of these things have opportunity if you can come up with a recommendation at your next meeting that Mayor Pro Tem is willing to put in front of the council. So do you want me to give the descriptions about art weeks, what they might be helping, what they might be looking for? So for Arts Week, they would like to have possibly a donation for snacks and drinks for the community members who are painting the mural, or possibly help with funding supplies for paintbrushes, the paint, the tape, all that sort of thing, UV coating. They're also having a reception at the Sculpture Garden on September 28th. If you would want to volunteer to help out with that. The Heartifacts option or idea is that they're looking again for funding of snacks and drinks. They have an evening reception when they open, I think in that week in October. They'd also like any members of this board to display your own family treasures. And then anybody who wants to volunteer on Saturday for a couple hours, they'd be really happy to have volunteers. The volunteers are talking about the intent of the project and just making connections with residents and city, and specifically history and archiving that history. So those are kind of the ideas that were gathered for things that are already happening.
Cody, what's the date on that again? The Heartifacts?
Heartifacts is most of October, the 7th through the 29th. The reception, I think, is the 20. I don't know if she gave me the reception date. Let me check again. She did not give me the reception, the opening evening. So it's the 8th or 7th of October would be the opening reception. That's a Saturday.
My question is, what's most likely to foster inclusion? And it sounds like we may need to consult with Kate.
I think Heartifacts this whole time she's been, every time I ask her how this board could be helpful, she goes back to Heartifacts and the history. And I can ask Kate what would be most inclusive. We can also, use those funds to divide and conquer or distribute amongst more than one thing.
Is there a cost for people to participate in that?
Not in either one, I don't believe. I think, but the city has to fund it. So.
Okay. And I'd like to know what, and maybe Kate needs to tell us this, what is her outreach? Who is she reaching out to for that?
For Heartifacts, she's reached out to us about a year ago. I think Miguel's fiance is one of the contributors who came through that. I think she's been reaching out to the community as a whole. Justin, do you know, you have the conversations with Kate too, any of that kind of detail?
Yeah, I know she's definitely in our conversation. She's very much about inclusion and things of that nature. I think she, quite frankly, has inherited a lot of new roles and responsibilities. So I think she's actually depending on us, Rich. She would love to partner with us to kind of inform what would be good opportunities for this. But I can certainly, I think it would be really wise to, just kind of gauge exactly your question. What would promote the most inclusivity, and maybe just have that as a starting point when we reach out to Kate and say, we're interested in funding these projects, and what would be the most, right, for lack of a better term, bang for our buck in moving toward making sure that funding goes to inclusive minded practice.
Yeah, I'd like to make sure it's truly inclusive and not just, it doesn't just look like we're doing something.
Yeah.
All right. The other question to ask Kate, I guess, is if she's developed a ballpark budget. It'd be hard, of course, without knowing what the attendees are, but at least we could, divvy up the money appropriately. Since it looks like 2 events that we're supporting.
So
Because I'd kind of like to know what communities are being approached for this effort. Where is this going to? Are they underserved areas? Are they reaching out to various communities? I don't know how they select where they go.
Right, exactly.
I think the locations are already predetermined, and both are in historic Westminster.
Okay.
I think Art Walks makes most sense that it's in historic Westminster since that's where our art district is. And I think Artifacts also having an art focus. I mean, we had Kate's position is cultural affairs, arts and cultural affairs. So anything Kate's doing has something to do with arts and history.
Mhm.
She's also the liaison to our historic landmark board. So she's looking at it from that lens. That's what her work focus is.
Okay, that's helpful.
So I can ask Kate these questions. Rich, would you restate your question because you did it better than I typed it out?
Oh, uh-oh. Well, which one?
The one about inclusivity of the programs and the activities.
Okay, yeah. To preface it, we'd like to ensure that it promotes inclusion or inclusivity. And we're interested in knowing who she has reached out to participate. Did that cover what I said?
Yeah. And I just think clarifying when you say who she's reached out to, it's for the participants in it, not for who's supporting it, but for who's going to be making use of it.
So
Yeah.
because these 2 programs are thought of as citywide, my understanding is, well, unlike most programs, they're not usually targeted unless it's a town hall that we've been told to target to a neighborhood. So it's a citywide, it's been on the city events calendar. It's shared through social media as a citywide. I don't think they're inviting a specific neighborhood.
No, but it depends a lot on where it's located because
right.
a lot
and both of these are in historic Westminster.
Yeah.
So I feel like I don't need to ask that question then. Right?
Well, if what you're describing is that it's the outreach is general, then no, the question makes no sense.
Yeah. Okay, I'll ask.
So
you'll interpret it in the moment. You'll make it work. I have no doubt.
Cody, let's assume that Kate needs $500 per event for refreshments, etc. That would be $1,000 of our allocation. We would still have some dollars left to do something else, correct?
Yes.
If we can get council approval.
Correct.
Our total budget for the year was what, 4,000? Am I correct?
It's 8,000 is your total. You've spent 1,000 by supporting our a la carte on September 8th.
Yeah, so we're still outside of the art efforts. We're still looking for other opportunities to help build inclusivity in the city.
Yeah. I think Alan has his hand up.
I do. I actually have several proposals for us to consider for this funding. Can I just go through them?
Sure.
Well, one you've been touching on when it comes to food insecurity However, we can participate, donate to Fish of Westminster.
I don't think
which
we
is-
can donate. I don't think we're allowed to donate.
We're not allowed
funds.
to donate.
Nope, I don't believe so.
But
Let me
we are
open-
allowed to partner
Well,
with a food bank.
Using it hesitantly. I basically was told, no, you can't use your money basically at all without council support and approval. And so let me open up that meeting.
Yeah.
It's pretty strict because anything that we give has a city connection. And so if we give to one, we kind of have to give to all. So if we're partnering with our own organization to support these activities, there's not hesitation around that because it's a city sponsored event or activity. When we start going out on our own, then there will be questions about if we're
yeah.
doing for everybody the same.
Yeah, well, and in addition to that, I love Fish and the things they do, but it is a faith-based thing, and to do one, as you say, and not everyone shows bias towards a particular faith.
Well, and the way I'm viewing this is that it's a faith-based operation, but it has nothing to do with religion or faith. It has everything to do about food insecurity.
Right, but we're a government entity, so church and state are not. And we can go back to the conversation we had at our last meeting where there are examples in law where that also then becomes a discriminatory thing and then we could be sued.
Right.
So
Right.
I appreciate the idea and the enthusiasm, but Alan, I gotta say no to that one. I'm sorry, we can't.
All
I'd
right,
like to
then,
hear your other ideas though.
Does this also affect, for example, the Westminster Foundation, Legacy Foundation? Do they fall into that category?
I think yes, because technically they're a separate entity. They just have some funding support from the city. I would be hesitant there.
Okay, because I know the Legacy Foundation is involved with health, equity, conservation, and outdoor recreation. And they're also about elevating the arts and education in the city. So some of the things that you've been talking about, like the Heartifacts and what was that art something at the park?
It's the art week in September. There's a
Uh-huh.
number of events associated with that.
Yeah,
So if they are doing these things that are sometimes parallel to what we're doing, that's why I wonder whether, and I think there are at least two counselors that are involved with the Westminster Legacy Foundation. I think Damat and Azadi are both connected. I'm not sure if Seymour is also connected or not.
As far as I know, it's just
those are city initiatives, aren't they? Aren't
they're
those
not
actually city initiatives? No?
foundation has their own employee and their own, we support, the city supports a percentage of that employee's benefits and salary. But otherwise that employee is basically on their own running a nonprofit and the city's helping it get off the ground for many, many years now.
So Cody, let me ask the political question. Does it make it any easier to get council approval if it's a city-sponsored, well, I won't call it a city-sponsored organization, but a city-connected organization? In other words, they're getting block grant funds from the organization gets block grant funds from the community, from the city or directly, or some other funding stream that would make it politically more palatable to say, oh yeah, we know these guys, they're hosting an event, let's provide food or, drinks like we're doing for the arts event earlier. Does that make any difference, do you think? Hard to say.
I think we're safest to support city-sponsored events and activities. I just asked the attorney if we can support the Legacy Foundation initiatives. I'll let you know what he says to that. But he made it pretty. Yeah, I think we still run into if we support one, we support all. Then we're gonna have others coming asking for, regardless if the city supports them or not.
Miguel did make a recommendation that maybe
Yeah.
we present 2 options or 2 proposals and send them to city council. When we decide on this.
My gut reaction to that is that it'd probably be more accepted if we came to them with our recommendations and said, "Will approve this, please," rather than making them make a decision on how we spend the funds we've been given. I don't know. That's just my gut reaction.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah, my
right. You want to make
perspective
a
on it, sorry.
suggestion. Go ahead. Sorry,
My
Miguel. Go
perspective
ahead.
on it was just that we have a front runner and a backup just in case. That was my perspective. So if they shoot the front runner down, we have potentially a backup option. That was my
Sure,
thoughts,
that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
But right now we don't have one. So I guess the idea that was floated for like putting on some sort of a program for Indigenous probably would not go well then.
So what I'm understanding is that the city will be hesitant to do anything that is outside their infrastructure.
Right.
Because what it would happen, let me put this out there. I just feel like they're being overly cautious. There's probably a lot of action going on right now. It is an election year, frankly. So there's some politicking going on. I will present that. I also know that some city agencies and organizations, like, we've been heavily audited, and so there have been questions about how, not us, but how others have spent money around city finances. So I know they've been shoring that up over the past few years. Cody, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but so I think they're going to be, I think it wouldn't be impossible to forge that path. I think it would be pretty hard to do by December.
Yeah,
because we have to really get the city council probably to do a study session on it to figure out that so I mean, it may be possible, like, going through the proper channels, but I just don't think we personally would have the time. And as I was sitting here, and I want to go back to Alan because he said he had a few proposals. I want to make sure that he was able to list them. But one of the quick wins maybe is, it goes back to something Kate said. I think it's Kate Harbeck, right?
Scarbeck.
Scarbeck, sorry, is coming, to our next meeting. Maybe it's just like, how can we latch on to your efforts, because she's trying to support, our displaced population. And, in my mind, that would serve to be as inclusive as possible.
Yes.
It could, maybe she would want us to help sponsor an event that's through, city and inclusivity board. Maybe she has ideas about outreach. Maybe she needs promotional materials to get out to libraries. I don't know, but those could be things that maybe, within the infrastructure that would support. I think it would speak to Rich's earlier point, is this going to go to an issue of inclusivity? I think it will speak to Alan's and, of course, all of our passion areas about how do we support persons who are displaced, in a more direct way. And Kate may be the kind of gold piece or the missing piece that we can link into around that, because if we could represent that work somehow, that's already being done, I think that could be a quick win for us. That's just my thinking.
Yeah,
makes sense.
Just like hot off the presses, one of the city attorneys just wrote back. He does not think that the Legacy Foundation qualifies as under the cities. He said this is what he said. The board is not authorized to run programs or expend public funds other than provided for in code or specified by city council. And this does not seem to fall under their mandated role and powers under code. I'm not aware of council having authorized them to expend funds in this way. So
All right.
that helps you.
It does.
Yeah.
That really narrows what we can do.
Yeah. So forgive me, but what I'm hearing is the only inclusion activities we can do are those that are already included. Is this what I'm hearing?
It's a
And
catch
then
of
council
22.
still gives you permission to do it.
Oh, yeah, and they say it's okay. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be sarcastic, but that's sort of what it's feeling like.
Yeah, no, Rich, I agree. I think the parameters are, yeah, I have opinions about that as well. I mean, it feels very much like it's just like a self-serving then
Yes.
piece, and then what I'm saying is, well, if we have any, which really we don't, apparently it's more of a rubber stamp, but if we have any control or recommending of where these funds go, then I want to hit the most inclusive programs that we can and support them. To your point, I don't want to be arbitrary, and frankly, I would rather go back to like figuring out a grant system or something, but that's long gone. Those days are long over, where we could support neighborhoods and have them apply for grants and things. That was, way back in the time that we first started this board. So, yeah, I don't disagree.
So may I add, there was one phrase that you had said from the attorney, specified by council. So that's kind of ambiguous. So if we approach and the council specifies something and says, yes, we agree, you can do this, is that acceptable? Or you have to go back to the attorney again?
Well,
Yes, everything we decide will go through the attorney again before I take it to council. And
Okay.
before I would
Mhm.
recommend that you all do.
And here's something else I was looking at that would come through us. I had a brief conversation with Miguel after the last meeting. I believe it. Yeah, no, 2 meetings ago. Well, maybe it was the last meeting. But about perhaps a discussion program, maybe called Understanding Others. It could be a 3 or 4 part over a 3 or 4 night program where we have a series that we learn about understanding others in our community, perhaps with 3 Black discussion leaders, 1 with 3 Indigenous, 1 with 3 Asian. You can even 3 Jews. I think there are probably a half dozen Jews, and actually there's more than that in the city. But I'm thinking something along those lines, just because I have seen one that was done with 3 all Denver based, or I should say Colorado based, Black professionals, just talking about what it was like being Black. The same for 3 Indigenous, 2 were Colorado, 1 I think was from Minneapolis. She was a dynamic young woman, and I say that because she's 21 or 22 years old. And I'm wondering whether we could not do a series like that, where this board recommends that we sponsor that.
So Alan, I think that's an intriguing proposal, but it sounds like to me, unless we can get a city department that says, geez, we want to do this and partner with them, we'd have a hard time selling it to the council.
Yeah, I mean, anything you come up with, you have to sell to the council. So if you want to try to sell this to the council, but then here's the thing, you have 1 staff liaison. So how do we divide up those activities so that can be accomplished?
I'm not following. Divide up the activities.
well,
Who would handle all of the logistics, arranging, scheduling, promotions, marketing? et cetera, for something of that nature.
Okay, well, I actually know, and through my wife, and the organizations that she's belonged to, we do know of people in all of those areas, all of those groups, that could be assembled. Question would be how many would do this? And what I was looking at is 50-minute presentations, and then from the community, 45 minutes max Q&A that could be done.
Okay.
But I've seen these accomplished. Go ahead, Rich.
No, did you finish?
Yes.
I didn't mean to step on you. Okay. Well, that's an interesting proposal, and I think the human was it the human library program? I think kind of leans that way. But I'm wondering if something like this could be done through the library system. That might be ideal, or if we can make connections with the community college. Those are two options, but even with both of those options, can we do this by December?
That's the big point. I think it's a great idea, and we might be able to get it done through the library. I can certainly bring it to Amy and find out. But yeah, accomplishing it by the end of December is frightening.
Where I have seen some of these work, they're sometimes able to pull these together within 2 months. Because of the logistics, pretty much, you could have it could be a in-person, it could be a hybrid, it could be such as what we're doing, or a Zoom only, where the residents can, and also dial in, where that can happen. I've seen this done rather quickly.
Who has done it quickly? Not sarcastic. Do they have something we can mimic? I just don't see how it can happen that quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, to Doug's point, helpful if maybe we could get in touch with one of those organizations and see kind of what their process was, just to kind of hurry that up. But then we have the added, we might be able to get that together quickly. But I wonder how much information city council would need to kind of get it up and running and approved by the time that our fiscal window is very much rapidly closing. That would be one question I guess we could ask Mayor Pro Tem at some point.
Oh, yeah. I was on
My
mute,
question
right?
remains, who leads this and organizes it and finds the location and finds someone to tape it and finds someone to broadcast it and finds space and the people and coordinates that they all come on the same day and all of those sorts of things, right? I mean,
Yep.
how is that going to be managed too? Because that's going to play into the efficiency and ability to do that in 2 months or 3 years.
Yeah. And obviously that would not be able to happen with our city staff. That's something in my mind that would have to be planned far in advance to be able to start working on that. So we would have to assume that responsibility as a board, and I think our powers would be very limited. So I think it's a great idea. I agree. I wonder if there aren't maybe some other avenues of moving through libraries or something with that. I just don't know if it's realistic for, the fact that it's hard enough to get all of us scheduled into a same meeting, once or twice a month. I certainly, unless someone wanted to take the lead on that, in looking at all of those things. But again, we'd have to have a quick turnaround time of that information. And there's still the possibility that then we're in September and we have to decline and figure something else out. So could be an option, maybe. But
Yeah, it's something I'd like to see us pursue moving forward. See if there's a way we could work it out with the library to do it. Perhaps get council to give some funding to a program to do that. Maybe the library could get the funding for it.
Maybe they could piggyback on their, book. I call it book read. That's not the correct term.
Yeah, One Book Westminster is
One
going to
book
be,
effort.
the book has been chosen. It's by a Native American author. It's a ghost story mystery.
Excellent. So why couldn't we piggyback on that? Of course, that'll be next year. But,
That I'd say, because there's already a huge effort around that and getting all of the programming around it, I can guarantee they do not want to piggyback for that.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, they sound like, I mean, I really love this idea. And of course, what we're seeing is some difficulty making it happen with, do we have the resources to do it? And it sounds like there is something that that is doable immediately, but we need to talk to Kate.
Yeah.
So I wonder if we can narrow this down at our meet. I hate to push it off because we're doing so we don't push it off. But if we need to consult with Kate and see what her needs are, that's something we can do immediately.
I guess I'm wondering, not being familiar with the city budget in any detail at this point, are there facets of funding in the city that things that are funded, but maybe not to the level that we would like to see them funded? And could we reach out to them? Except I don't know any specifics about that. That was just a thought that occurred to me in a very broad general sense.
Can you give me a little bit more? Like, do you just mean any activity that is, or do you mean
I mean, I guess
like events and activity? Because us, I'm sure there are plenty of programs in the city that would love to have more funding, but what does that look like? And what's your criteria there? I mean, I'm listing all the external ones and the groups that are reaching the greatest number of people in the community, and that seems to not be totally meeting the bill. I don't think the dollars going internal is what you're looking for either. So I've given the current programming community wise, they always need funds. I mean, our special events team is scrappy. They pull off amazing things, and they do it with a budget and sponsorships, because that's the only way to do it. They break even or barely make any money to put on the next one each year. I mean, to the point where they actually did some fewer events this year because of that financial burden. So in some way, I've already given you those, at least when it comes to the special events and cultural affairs group, which I think is probably the best fit. They're also at the libraries and working with the libraries at all of their events, for neighborhood nights. And this month are at Irving Street. The first month, I think May or June, they were all at College Hill. So they're also working with the neighborhoods, and not just the parks, but also the library system, the trailers, our educational things. I guess nothing is coming to mind that would meet that need that I haven't already shared.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Like I said, I was just throwing a thought out there.
Okay. I mean,
and you have answered it, so that's
more
fine.
Around that. Yeah, I just don't know what else I don't know where else to go.
You've already done all of that research, more than I had realized, so that's fine. I get it. You always exceed expectations.
not trying to exceed. I'm trying to help you all find an avenue in which this makes the most sense and
Yeah.
falls within the city's, or the city attorney at least, expectations of code. So
Yep. And you've done, yeah. And thank you for all of the effort. I think it's wonderful. I wish there were more avenues that we had, but like Rich said, it sounds like our best option at this point is to talk to Kate and see how she thinks she can best distribute this money. Is that kind of summing it up?
I mean, I asked her all the questions and asked if she might be available for the September 13th meeting. We also have Kate at that meeting, so I would ask, well, we'd have two Kates. So we have Kate Scarbeck also at that meeting. I would ask for Kate Cook to also come. I'll let you know what she says.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think we just need to be prepared to make a decision at that meeting.
Yeah.
So in preparation for that preparation, Rich, how, since everything, we're seeing all the roadblocks, what we can't do, what can we do? It's like, I would like a list of, even if it's a list of just 2 items, what can we use that money for?
I think we just recognized that.
Yeah, that's why we're waiting for Kate's.
Yeah.
Plural.
So the
Yeah.
case,
And then city council has to approve. So you have to pretend to be city council for a minute.
Right.
Well, and if we can, you know, and I know Mayor Pro Tem, he had tried to arrange coverage and for some reason that had, you know, fallen through at the last meeting. But, you know, with that front loading of what we want to do, maybe as we talk to Kate and we get into the debrief, Cody, maybe we put it on the agenda item. Maybe after Kate's presentation, just do a quick brainstorming jam session, you know, where we can talk through how could we maybe leverage some of the funds that we have to support you, see if that's a possibility, and then see if we can have Mayor Pro Tem sort of, you know, craft as we go, so to speak, because he definitely would have maybe some perspectives on how we could push it through to city council. He already did with our first initiative because it was a city initiative. That was an easy push. But again, I go back to what Rich said too. I want to do what good we can with the limited time and finances we have. So.
Yeah, Alan, I totally share your frustration here.
I think we all do. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I really don't have any words that would be very positive at this point around that. But what I'm doing is at this point, we're just trying to move it forward because it sounds like city council has made up its mind. We obviously are governed now by the attorney, and I know, I understand that.
Oh, I don't want to, none of this is city council. This is city attorney keeping us from a lawsuit. I have not asked Mayor Pro Tem or any of his colleagues, any of these questions. This is just the city attorney's advice.
No, I'm talking about just policy and procedure.
Okay.
Because that's what the city council does is they mandate policy and we're governed by that.
Right.
So, yeah. So I would think that the best plan of action would be what has already been discussed is let's just prepare to have a conversation with Kate at our next meeting. And then, you know, maybe tentatively, if, you know, we could, plan to do a follow-up meeting. If for some reason that doesn't go anywhere, we could do a quick subcommittee meeting and then just decide how we're gonna spend the funds.
Yeah, I would think the board could make that decision, but you're the chair, so you decide what's the most appropriate way to proceed.
Well, I would like to think that as well. But that being said, if Kate's like, well, we don't have any opportunities, then that puts us back to square one. And you know, our board, you know, we could certainly brainstorm ideas there. We could have a brainstorming session there as well. But ultimately we would you know, it can, we'd have to kind of redo some of the same work and
Okay. Well, one of our options, you know, in the absence of city support for inclusivity is to let the money go.
Yeah.
That is an option.
Spinning our wheels.
Yeah.
it's true.
Yeah, I mean, there is no penalty for not being able to distribute all of it.
Right.
It's not like we're going to get next year whatever we spend this year. This is it. We're trying to do as much good as we can. We'll reach out and do as much good as we can and be thankful for that as anything else goes.
Yeah. Things change.
I'm sorry.
No,
No,
it's all good. You
No.
keep us out of trouble. That's
It's not only us. I mean, PROS board had a similar situation.
Yeah.
it was
No,
diplomatic.
Yeah.
They have a
I know.
memo. I don't have a memo. I just have emails that I read out loud to you.
Well, so they got maybe further down the road of trouble than we did. So
Well, Kate had to present a memo to them. Mayor Pro Tem happened to be at that meeting, so maybe he can give us more of that.
dear.
But basically it comes down to you can't tell anybody no nowadays. And there's you know, legal precedent set already.
Yeah.
So
okay.
sorry.
The only safe path is to do nothing. Just stop and throw your tent, pitch your tent by the side of the road.
Well, I think if it was January, we could look at how to make Alan's idea happen by September, but
Could we
It's
make a
August.
recommendation? Could we make a recommendation for putting our $7,000 toward you know, a long-lasting shelter solution for our displaced families and just be done with it and be like, okay,
Love that.
you know, just like put the foot forward and say, you know what, we don't have as a city truly a long-lasting shelter structure or a safe space or things. I know the city has a lot of efforts. I know we've got a lot of navigators. I know Kate and people are better than myself. But you know, in the sort of last ditch effort, I mean, maybe we just make a recommendation to be like, we would love to lay the first stone of whatever this will look like in years to come. Because
I
it is
think that's a
going to be-
conversation maybe to have with Kate,
Yeah.
Kate Scarback when
Mhm.
she's here. And if that's something that she thinks is feasible or makes sense or doesn't, I mean, I think we can ask Kate that.
I mean, frankly, it would be largely symbolic. We know.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
But I don't even know, I don't know it well enough to know if even the largely symbolic effort is
So
something
Yeah.
feasible. You know what I mean? So I think asking Kate
Yeah,
would be helpful.
it would be. I don't want to be so cynical, but I don't know how that would be spent in 4 months to start anything substantive for helping our unhoused.
No, yeah, I mean, it would be very much a symbolic nature. It goes back to your point, Doug. We're not going to get a penalty for not spending it. So it's just a symbolic statement that puts us on the record that says we need to do something.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Cody, I have a quick question. Can we, assuming we spend $1,000 and have 7,000 left over, can we request the council carry over those funds so that we can allocate them next year? Is that a policy issue that can be explored?
I think the community requests are in the next, they're coming up in September. You can ask Mayor Pro Tem, the budget's approved. Their budget meeting for council to go over their request is September 18th. Your meeting's on the 13th, so you could I would say if none of these go anywhere, you can make that as your third ditch effort to ask.
So it's a great idea, Steve.
Might be worth a stab.
Yeah, I mean, if to Cody's point, if things don't, pan out for the next, couple of weeks, over the next couple of weeks, I suppose.
Okey-dokey.
I don't know. I think I'm a little bit more. I'm usually pretty rejuvenated when I'm hanging out with all of my friends here, but I'm like a little disheartened by some of the things, and it's
Yeah,
nothing
that
to
was a
do with
bummer
my
today.
cookie.
It's my
So,
fault.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Sorry. We have a path forward, so that's a plus.
Yeah.
And it sounds like there's 2 or 3 options.
Yeah.
It's not. So.
Okay.
And I think Kate is someone who agrees, as Justin said, has a similar lens. So asking her, I think, is helpful.
Yeah, that's hopeful.
Yeah. Yep.
And I did ask Doug, so I did ask library division manager Amy Rhoda about the one book and how Inclusivity Board could support their effort for that next year. And she said she would definitely keep us in mind and come back with more once that gets a little bit more, solidified, I guess, what makes sense for that.
Lovely. Saves me an email. Thank you.
Great.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you all for your time. Is there anything else that we
Yes,
want to?
thank you, everyone.